So you're thinking about using PixSquare to do some pixel art for your game development. Well, you're in the right place. I use PixSquare. I'm a beginner at this. I've been doing it for a little bit, but these are 5 things that I wish I would have known sooner that would have saved me a ton of time. So the first thing that I wish I would have done earlier was pick a resolution and stick with it. I started out my game dev journey thinking that my art had to be hyper detailed and hyper realistic, and I started with huge canvases. And that's fine if if that's what you want to do and if that's the amount of work you want to put into it, it's going to look great. But as a new developer, I had to tone it down quite a bit. And I learned early on that I needed to stick with assets that were around the same pixel grid. So I chose like 32 by 32 for my enemies, bumped it up a little bit for my main character, but most of my assets are at 32 by 32 or lower. And the reason you don't want to blow up your resolution and mix and match sizes too much on your assets is when you put them all together in the game, they start to look a little discombobulated and a little mismatched. One other thing that I would mention is that if you choose a scene method for your background of your game, make sure that if you build assets on top of that background that you put them in different layers. That way you can chop the assets out easily and load them into a separate canvas if you need to plug into your video game. Tip number 2. First, let me say that there are no rules when it comes to art, right? And I started out doing my pixel art in kind of the outline method, which I normally would do on just a sheet of paper. I would, draw the lines, outline the characters, outline the asset, and then kind of fill in the details from there. When I tried to do that with pixel art, it was possible, but as soon as I switched to the silhouette method, my assets became so much easier to create. So I would recommend that you jump into learning what the silhouette method is all about, how you start with that, and kind of build out details from there. Tip number 3 I want to give you is don't stay zoomed in forever. It's easy to kind of get locked in on the details of your assets and zoomed in so that you can see every little pixel. And sometimes that's needed, but if you stay there too long, you can zoom out to look at the entirety of the asset and realize that all that fun detail that you just spent an hour doing actually looks like garbage when you zoom out. So I constantly am switching in and out between a close-up view and a zoomed out view that's similar to what it's going to look like in my game so that I can make sure that it's going to actually look good to the player. Tip number 4, I would say save everything. When I first started doing game development, I had this idea to do this kind of like action role-playing game where the player was going to run around a map and do incredible things. And as my first game, I realized that was way too big for me to take on as my first project. So I tailored it down a lot to what I'm now developing called the Final Bastion. But I had already created quite a few assets for that first game. And instead of deleting them, what I did is I just kind of put them in a file in storage, knowing that those assets that I had created could probably be used in my new project. And if not, they can be used in a future project and even posted online for other people to use. So always save your iterations. You never know when you're going to be able to reuse that asset in the future. Tip number 5, this is very similar to tip number 3, where I said zoom out. But tip number 5 is to put your asset in the game. It's so important to actually get the asset in the game to see what it looks like as you play. And I would say do this before you pump a lot of detail into it. In fact, I've put a bunch of assets into my game that are anywhere between 15% to 30% finished because I wanted to see how animations looked on screen. I wanted to see how buildings might look on screen. I wanted to see how the background colors blended together. I wanted to see how the character looked up against the enemies. And did I need to do some extra detail work on the character or somehow make the character stand out more? So don't be afraid to get your asset into the game on screen. The last thing you want to do is spend 20 hours on a single asset only to put it in the game and realize that it looks horrible, which I've done before. I've got a few assets that I've put in and I've had to pull right back out because, quite honestly, they were terrible. So just a quick recap of the 5 things that would have saved me a ton of time if I would have done them earlier. Make sure that your resolution is somewhat cohesive and goes well together. Start your drawings with the silhouette method, or at least try it if you haven't done that yet, and pick a method that works for you that's going to be fast and that's going to look good and be fun for you. Zoom in and out constantly. Check your asset at various sizes that the player might see on the screen and make sure that it looks good to the player, not necessarily looks good to you zoomed in. Save anything that you don't like, set it aside, maybe use it in a different game, or come back to it later when you have fresh eyes. And number 5, make sure that you load your assets into the game before they are 100% complete to check it out and make sure that you like it so that you don't waste a ton of time animating, building out a full detailed sprite only to find out that it's actually never going to be in the final product. Hey, I'm on this journey with you. I'm still a beginner. I've been developing and doing pixel art for only about 6 weeks now, so I'm on this journey with you. If you have any tips that you can provide me, I would love to hear them in the comments. I hope you've gotten something out of this little tip video that will help support you in your game development journey. Look forward to seeing you in the next one. Love you guys. Bye-bye.